Hi, my name is Kim Mutcherson, co-dean of Rutgers Law School in Camden, and this is The Power of Attorney. So this is another one of those episodes where I get to talk to one of our alums who has a terrific story about how he came to us at Rutgers Law School and what he is doing with his law degree. So Landon Hacker, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. It's a pleasure. So the way that I usually start this podcast is I say to folks, what's your origin story, right? How is it that you decided to become a lawyer? And for most people, that's a pretty low key and tame story. But I think for you, we're going to spend a little bit more time on the origin story to sort of figure out how you went from one place to where you are now. So actually, you tell me where you want to start. Where do you think is a good place to start?
Oh man. How about why I decided to come to law school,
All right, let's
or
start
even
with.
like go back to school in the first place?
Well, let's talk about this. Why did you stop school in the first instance
Good question.
and then have to come back to school?
Good question. Out of high school, I went to a small school on the Eastern Shore of Maryland called Salisbury University. Long story short is I was not prepared to go away to school.
Okay.
And when I got to school, I one first and foremost did not appreciate the opportunity for a higher education.
Mm-hmm.
I very much took that for granted. Two, I went to school because my parents told me I had to go to college.
Okay.
I
Were your parents college educated? Is that why
They were not.
they? Okay. Got it.
So my mom, both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mom deals in antiques. We spent a lot of Saturday mornings going to yard sales and estate sales, and then she would set up shop at the Berlin flea market. She had a little place in downtown Hannaford where she sold antiques. So she was a hustler, and
Okay.
we were exposed to that from a very young age and took part in that and went with her everywhere. I have a twin brother as well, so him and I would we would go with my mom everywhere.
Okay.
And when I probably about 3, my mom got divorced, and then when I was about 8, she remarried, and she remarried my stepfather, who later adopted my brother and I. He was a tile man. He had his own flooring business.
Okay.
So we would also spend weekends doing hard labor and construction.
Okay.
So from a very early age and throughout my entire upbringing, there was no shortage of opportunity to do work. I would think that because my parents worked so hard to build what they did in life, they very much wanted my brother and I to go to college to probably make life a little bit easier than the way they had it. I imagine
Yeah.
that's what I'm not a parent, but I imagine most parents want their children's lives to be easier and better than theirs.
Absolutely.
And I think that was the push to go to college.
Okay.
So I chose the school furthest away from home because not that I had a horrible childhood. My parents were very strict. I wanted to go as far away from home as possible, and Salisbury University on the Eastern Shore of Maryland was the school that I got into that was the furthest from home. So that's where I went. When I got there, like I said earlier, I, one, did not appreciate the opportunity for a higher education, and two, I was not prepared to go away and live on my own. So I was on my own at like 17. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was sent to school at 17. It just probably turned 18, August 10th, and then like school started the following week.
Okay.
So
And I guess your brother didn't go with you. So
no,
it was just you.
my brother stayed local. I think he spent a semester at LaSalle, and that was it. Like college was not for him,
Right.
and quite frankly, it was not for me either.
Okay.
But you know, I went and I was exposed to a lot of things I was never exposed to in high school. You know, my parents, we didn't really talk about alcohol and drugs in my
Mm-hmm.
house, and we weren't allowed to go out to parties. Really, like my parents weren't like overly strict or like overbearing, but like we were on the short leash,
Yeah.
and
And I'm sure from their perspective, they were, trying to keep you all safe and keep you on
yes.
the straight and narrow. Yeah.
And I suspect the reasoning for that behind my mom's decisions to raise us that way may have come a lot from my biological father, who was a drug addict and very involved in all that stuff. And my mother, she's now in recovery as well for alcoholism.
Okay.
So they between their life experiences, they probably thought it was best to like keep us as sheltered as possible. But in hindsight, a little bit of exposure, at least a discussion about things, is always good, just so you're aware of
Yeah.
like what's out there, what's going on, and what to look out for. And when I got to Salisbury, I was off to the races.
Okay.
And I was exposed to things I had never been exposed to before that I didn't really know about. And within, I'd say by the end of my first year of college, I had a full blown opiate addiction. It started with pills, and then it went to heroin. And
Okay.
I quickly burned every bridge that I had. I failed out of school. My parents, my mom was in the middle of going through her second divorce my sophomore year of college, maybe sophomore, junior year of college. Couldn't come home, like, really had nowhere to go, and just very, very lost in life.
Yeah.
Um, so that is the short story of why I ceased going to school in the first place.
Okay.
And after I had failed out of Salisbury, I had really nowhere to go. So I lived in Baltimore for a little bit. I bounced around. I lived with my girlfriend for a little bit, but the life of a person in active addiction can't really keep relationships, a steady job, or even a place to live for very long. And I soon found myself coming back home to South Jersey, and this is what I knew was the Camden County area. And between the ages of 18 and I guess 24, I just spent them like a lot of time either on the street, in and out of jail, or in like rehabs or other kinds of halfway houses or in other institutions as a result of my drug addiction.
That's that's a pretty long time,
Yeah,
right? I mean, that's a number of years.
yeah.
And so what, like, who were you in contact with? Like, who was sort of, trying to help you get back on the right path? Were you talking to your family?
No, I really wasn't talking to my family. My family, most of them wanted really nothing to do with me.
Uh,
My parents were in the middle of going through a divorce. I couldn't really reach out to them. My mom was going through her own issues. She was actively using throughout. I mean, I didn't know this until much later in life, but throughout my entire upbringing, like middle school and high school, she had her own issues and problems, and kept
mm-hmm.
that either under very good control or very closeted from us, which again I think fueled her desire to keep us more sheltered and like on such a short leash because she knew what she was doing. And
Yeah.
my brother had issues too. He was using. He
Oh
actually,
boy.
by the time I moved back home to New Jersey, my brother was already in Florida.
Okay.
So my brother moved to Florida and he went to rehab down there, and he lived down there for a little while. And I have family down in Florida, so he stayed there. So my brother was down in Florida. My parents had their problems up here. My family was scattered all over, and I really didn't have anybody to turn to for help or direction. And if they did give me help, I exhausted it. Like
Okay.
I used them dry, either stole from them. I mean, you burn your bridges pretty quickly.
Hmm. So you were living where?
In shelters, on the
Hmm.
street, on
Okay.
the beach. I would mainly stay in Atlantic City because that's where you can make money. Like all the
Hmm.
hustles are down in Atlantic City, and then you come to Camden to cop, and you just find somewhere to sleep.
Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. So what was the moment where, I mean, you had been in rehab,
yeah,
maybe more than once
yeah.
already.
Handful of
And
time.
then there was a moment where it started to turn.
So the turning point in my life for the better was probably the last time I got arrested, which was December 1st, 2011, and that's also
Mhm.
my clean date. The last time I got high.
Okay.
And by December 1st, 2011, I had multiple charges out of multiple counties, a violation of probation. There was no more 6 month, 9 month jail sentences. This is like prison time now.
Okay.
And I got locked up at the Hamilton Mall for shoplifting and possession. And so I stayed in Elena County for a little bit. And then once I had a violation of probation out of Camden County, and I had some stuff out of Burlington County. So they
Mhm.
transferred me back up. And my brother well, he was my friend as well in high school, but we had a friend who was a lawyer or was just becoming a lawyer at the time. And my brother reached out to him to help me. And he, one, was not a practicing attorney. I think he was in his last year of law school, but he was working at a firm. And he was
Okay.
working at the firm where I'm still at now.
Ah.
And I will tie the whole story in together. So my brother calls our friend from high school, tells him that I need help and I have some issues. He, one, not being an attorney, was really doing like wills and estates and trust stuff, couldn't really handle criminal stuff. So he reached out to the partner in his firm, Kimberly Stewart at Malcolm and Marmouth and Miller. And
Hmm.
she was the criminal lawyer in our firm. And her and Brad came to visit me in jail. And, you know, they convinced me to take this drug court program.
Uh-huh.
And I had heard of drug court, and everyone I know that was on drug court or violated drug court said it was like, you don't want to take drug court; it's a setup. And
Why is it a setup? Why did they say it was a setup?
at first, because it's probation on steroids. I had failed a probation for years. Like,
Hmm.
if I couldn't do probation, what would make me think I was able to do drug court?
Yeah.
Probation, you show up like once every other week or once a month to take a urine and you pay your fine, you go on your way. Drug court, you have to show up like 3, 4 times a week. You have to go to counseling, you have to go to meetings. And at that moment in time, I was not ready to get clean.
Hmm.
Like I really didn't want to get clean. As weird as it sounds, like I was comfortable and content with the life that I had.
And do you feel like that was because you were just like you couldn't imagine a different life for yourself at that point?
Yeah. At that time, I was 23 or 24 years old, and everyone that I knew in life outside of my family was progressing in life. I mean, my friend helping was already a lawyer, and,
Right.
I felt very behind in life. I don't want to curse, but I said, F it. You know,
Yeah.
this is the life that I made for myself.
That's a really young point in life to say, well, this is it, right?
No,
To throw up your hands.
but drugs became my best friend. And,
Wow.
like I really, really didn't want to stop using. And I
Hmm.
figured I can keep doing this, not being accountable to anyone or, doing what I want to do, how I want to do it. Um,
Yeah.
and I truly believe that I could do that for the rest of my life.
Wow. Okay.
Talk about young and dumb.
Yeah.
You know, I just had too much at multiple counties to, like, it was just a problem. And
Yeah.
it was either go away for a while, I
Hmm.
think like 5 to 10, or
Mm.
take this drug court um,
Yeah.
option. And I don't know if she told me this or our friend Brad told me this, but they said one of the two of them, I remember saying, if you take drug court and you get on this program, your family will help you.
Mm. Hmm.
And I was like, oh wow, maybe this is like my last chance.
Yeah.
And she explained to me, like, you're gonna die either
Yeah.
on the street or in prison.
Hmm.
And when I came to that realization after like 6 months of like being sober and having a little bit of clarity, and here having an opportunity for a fresh start, I just gave myself a chance.
Yeah.
The best, in a weird way, the best part about being at the bottom is there's nowhere to go but up.
Yeah.
And I certainly didn't
Yeah.
want to, even though I wanted to continue to do what I was doing, I was not ready to die,
Yeah.
either
Good.
on the street or in jail. And
Hmm.
I took drug court.
So can you walk people through? I mean, I think that folks have, you say drug court and people have like some sort of sense of what that means. And, people know that it is, I guess diversion program is the wrong word for it, but it
Well,
is,
it is.
or is
It's a
that
type of
fair?
diversion.
Okay.
It is a diversionary program.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is. It's diverting you from prison. You still have to plead guilty to your charges to get
Hmm.
into it. It's not for everybody. I know my
Hmm.
lawyer had to fight for me to get in there because they really don't want anybody with any violent offenses. So, like, if you have
Mm.
like at a robbery charge, and there's a lot of different offenses that arise out of drug use. So, for instance,
Yeah.
drug court isn't really for. I know prosecutors will push back, and I know this now because I interned with drug court later on in life while I was in law school. But prosecutors will push back on like robbery charges, assault charges, and distribution charges.
Hmm.
But a lot of people sell drugs to get high.
Right.
So
Right.
it's not like
Yeah.
they're bona fide drug dealers. They're just selling a little bit to get by, and assaults, robberies, all the violent in nature. I mean, you're doing those things to get high, to get money.
Right.
So there's a
Exactly.
lot of charges that could preclude someone from drug court that do arise that are truly drug related in nature.
Yeah.
The screening process is rigorous, and rightfully so. They don't want a bunch of drug dealers and violent offenders, and let alone sexual offenders, on drug court
Hmm.
just to escape prison. So I
Right.
do understand why they have those standards and certain charges that you can't get in.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of work to consolidate a lot of different charges out of 3 different counties.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the footwork and the process was in place for me to plead into drug court. And when I pled into drug court, I got a 5 year sentence. So
Okay.
that means you stay on drug court for 5 years, and at the end of the 5 years, you're done. You've maxed out your sentence, if you will.
Okay.
You can graduate early. There's 4 phases to drug court. Phase one, you have to stay on for 90 days. And during phase one, you are reporting to court once a week in person.
Hmm.
And when I was on drug court, you would report every Thursday. You have to be there at 9 a.m. and it would take all day because Burlington, it was Burlington County Drug Court, and there was hundreds of people on drug court.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
the hundreds of people would sit in at the time it was Judge Palmer's chambers, and they would call you up one by one in front of everybody, and you get like a progress report, the whole nine. So that was a whole day.
So when they're doing the progress report, is that just you reporting on, here are the things I'm doing, these are all the things that I'm doing right, or is it somebody else who's coming in and saying, well, here's what I got to say about Landon this week?
Yes. So
Okay.
before they call all of us into the courtroom to be presented to the judge, they have what are called team meetings,
Hmm.
where they sit down, where the judge sits down with all the probation officers, all the counselors at the different inpatient, outpatient centers, and they go through each person and they give progress reports.
Hmm.
So the judge already knows like what you're doing and if you've messed up. So like
Yeah.
if you get called up and you did something wrong, you're going to jail. Every time you get a sanction on drug court, you start over. So you could be on phase four, and if you mess up, whether it's picking up a new charge or like just forging a meeting slip, you're starting all the back on phase one. And when I was on drug court, more people would finish drug court, like by maxing out their 3 or 5 year sentence and actually graduating drug court.
Hmm.
So phase one, you would show up once a week in person to report. And then in addition to the one court session a week, you have another reporting session with your PO. And what you do is after 9 o'clock, you call a number and they tell you what groups of people have to come in the next day to give a urine.
Got it.
So that, to keep everyone on their toes. So it's really random. And sometimes you might get called in twice a week on top of the in person courting report. And then on phase one, you also have to do your inpatient. I was, I guess, prescribed or sentenced to. It was 3 hours twice a week. It was on Tuesdays and then Thursday nights, and then also you have to go to 3 NA or AA meetings a week.
Okay.
Oh, and you have to get a job. In order to move phases, in order to get off phase one, you have to have a job. Once you have all that and you've done that for 90 days, then you can go to phase two, which is it's all the same stuff as phase one, except instead of doing your in court reporting once a week, it's every other week. You
Okay.
still have the random urine, still the meetings, still the inpatient. You do that for 6 months and
Hmm.
maintain your job. And then once you do all that, then you go to phase three, which is for 9 months, minimum of 9 months. And instead of coming to court every other week, like in phase two, you go once a month.
Okay.
And then there's phase four. By then you're done your counseling, and then it's just one time a month you show up to court reporting, and you have to stay there for, I believe it's a year. So I think
Okay.
and I did it as like I did my drug court perfectly with no sanctions. I moved phases like as soon as I possibly could. I did everything you could possibly do to be compliant and perfect. And I think I graduated drug court in like 2 years and 2 months.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
What do you think allowed you to be, the perfect drug court pupil?
A lot of help and support from a lot of people. So once I took drug court, you have to be released to an address, and I didn't have an address.
Hmm.
So I said to my lawyer, I said, "I thought you said my family was going to help me out,
Yeah.
you know." And when I got on drug court, I was still homeless. I got released, I think under the supervision of my attorney, actually. And they
Okay.
allowed me to go to a church in Mount Holly. And I was living in an attic in a church in Mount Holly for a few weeks, I
Hmm.
believe. And then my lawyer and my aunt helped me move into an Oxford house, which is
Okay.
in Burlington City, which is like a sober living environment.
Hmm.
So within, I'd say, like a month of after being released from jail and then onto drug court, I had a roof over my head, and my aunt and my brother were at least talking to me. So I
Good.
was like very grateful for that,
Yeah.
and I understood that if I messed up drug court, like this is it. Like I didn't want to go to prison
Yeah.
for 5 years or whatever it was.
Yeah.
Um, so I took it very seriously. And after, I'd say, a couple months of job searching and being unsuccessful in that, Kimberly Stewart actually hooked me up with a job at her firm being a mail clerk. I was just very grateful and appreciative for the opportunity to live in the Oxford house and to have that mail clerk job. And as weird as it sounds, gave me a lot of purpose in life. And
Sure.
it made me feel really, really good that someone was helping me out, a complete stranger, and gave me an opportunity to change my life,
Yeah.
and that meant a lot.
I'm sure it did. So you did drug court perfectly and then finished drug court in 2014.
Yeah.
And then what did you see in front of you once you were done with drug court?
So I was working in a law firm all throughout drug court, and I was exposed to people that they had the ability to help people,
Yeah.
whether they actually did or not. There was an opportunity for them to do that,
Hmm.
and I really, really wanted to give back to people that were in my position. And after my life experiences the previous 5 years, like I understood that the opportunities that I was given are not given to 99% of the people.
Hmm.
Like the opportunity to get into an Oxford house without having a job, the opportunity to be a mail clerk at a law firm with a jacket as long as my arm and without any bona fide or good employment history. It was those little things that really turned my life around, that I understand that most people don't ever have that opportunity to do.
Yeah. So now you've been, at this point, you had been clean for over 2 years. You had been just killing it in drug court. You had a job, you had a place where you were living. And now you're at this point where, you've seen these lawyers, they're doing good things. Well, some of them are doing good things. And certainly you can imagine that all of them have the ability to do good things. And then, one day you decided that's who I want to be.
Yes. I figured that was the best way I could give back in the most powerful and impactful way that I could possibly help my people, was by
Hmm.
becoming a lawyer and representing these individuals who are often not even, I mean, now they give drug court to a lot more people, but back
Hmm.
then, like, you had to fight to get into drug court.
Yeah.
I mean, drug court was not given to everybody, and they're just like with any practice of area, there are good lawyers and bad lawyers, and it was
Sure.
my experience that most lawyers that were helping these individuals were not the best lawyer,
Right.
or they could have done something different or better.
Right.
And I don't think anybody should ever not be afforded the best representation possible. So
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to school, and that was a lot of hoops to jump through because I had failed out, and I had actually owed Salisbury a lot of money. I found
Oh
out
no.
they won't release your transcripts until like you pay off all your stuff. So after I got those issues resolved, I was able to go to BCC. Also, I by then they weren't interviewing people to come to college, and I knew I had a lot of explaining to do to get back into school. And Rutgers said they were not conducting interviews, that I can apply online, which, when I applied to Salisbury, it was not done online. Like I mailed in an
Yeah.
actual application. I also missed out on to 6 years of technology.
Yeah.
So I was not very computer literate or anything of the sort. So I had to go to BCC to, prove to Rutgers that I'm a changed person,
Hmm.
that I can get good grades. And I've been kicked off Rutgers campus in Camden. And
Yeah.
so they were not quick to give me an opportunity to come back. So,
Sure.
and rightfully so. So I did some classes at BCC. I got all A's in those classes, and then I was able to take those grades and then apply for Rutgers and show them I'm a changed man. I'm here to take this seriously, and
Great.
thank God they afforded me the opportunity. So I got into Rutgers and I finished. I think I was there for 2.5 years, like
Okay.
five, 6 semesters maybe.
Was it strange to be back in school?
It was a little bit, like those were my stomping grounds where I used to
Yeah.
work and run, and I was not the nicest person to be around then, and it was just a very surreal feeling to be invited back there and
Hmm.
to just have that like gift of like a fresh start.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you came back as a different person in like significant ways.
Yeah, yeah. So I did my undergrad at Rutgers, and the whole plan was to go to BCC, get some good grades, get into Rutgers, get straight A's in Rutgers as well, because I knew the only shot I had to get into law school with my past was that if I can somehow make up for this horrible checkered past was with like glaring, glowing, perfect grades. Like
Yeah.
in my mind, I was like, if I get a 4.0, how can they say no?
Right.
Like
They
what's the
still could
deal?
have said no.
I know, but in my mind, I was like, there's no way.
Yeah.
So I did that. I worked really hard, and I got straight A's at both BCC and Rutgers, and I took the LSAT, and I got a 152, which was like the bare minimum average score to get into law school. And I was told you should take it again, just to try and do better. So I took it again. I got a 152 again.
Uh,
So I got the same score twice. I was like, this is a sign. Like this is
yeah.
it. I'm gonna try and explain myself as best as possible in my personal statement. By then, I had I guess at least 5 years working at a law firm, plus my good grades.
And a really compelling personal story, right? I mean, on one hand, there's the concern of, does this person fall back into a life of addiction or, substance use? But on the other hand, it's like, here's a person who clearly has shown himself to be able to pull himself out of really difficult situations, and not just pull himself out, but do so incredibly successfully.
Yeah, thank you. So and I did well in law school too.
So you knew you wanted to be a lawyer, right? You wanted to go to law school, and you said when you came back to campus to go to undergrad that it was, that transition was a little bit jarring.
Very weird.
Yeah, what was it like once you started law school? I mean, at that point, did you feel, pretty settled into the new life you had built for yourself, or
Mhm.
was there a lot of transition that was involved in law school as well?
Just the adjustment of the academic world was an adjustment, going from what you do in undergrad to be evaluated and the workload. And I'm not saying undergrad was easy by any means, but I mean it's certainly not law school.
Yeah, it's
Um,
different. Yeah.
so academically was an adjustment, but lifestyle, like I was very comfortable with my new life, and I just went to class, did my
Yeah.
work, went to class, and left. I didn't really participate in like the mock trial. I really didn't have time either. Like I was working full time during the
Mhm.
day, so like my classes were 6 to 10 at night. But I didn't really get involved. I just wanted to, like, I was there for a very specific reason,
Yeah.
to to become a lawyer, and I know exactly what kind of lawyer I wanted to be: a public defender, or at least doing criminal defense, working with people with substance abuse issues or addiction issues. I had already like paved my way to like getting into that. So I just like
Mhm.
stayed focused, did what I had to do, got in and got out.
Got it. All
Yeah.
right. So you graduated in 20, right?
Yeah, this just this past May.
Yeah, so you're a very recent law school grad,
Yep.
and graduated during, one of the worst years that somebody could
It was
be in
bizarre.
law school.
So it was actually not that bad, because by the time the world changed, we were almost done my last semester.
Yeah,
So
that's
like,
true. Yeah,
you
but
know,
then you had to do the bar exam though.
Yeah, so that was challenging because, I started studying immediately,
Yeah.
as soon as I was done school, and then, like, it kept getting postponed, and I don't have a great memory. Like, I've done a
Mhm.
lot of damage to myself, so I know, like, the night before an exam, like, I have and the morning of, like, I'm rereading everything to try and, like, remember as much stuff as possible. So, my fear was, like, no matter how hard I studied, like, I would just have to keep, like, repeating the same thing over and over again, and, it worked. I
Yeah.
passed, so,
Excellent.
yeah.
So I want to talk about your nonprofit.
So, a few years after, like, being clean, I started to get involved and give back in as many ways as possible. And one of the ways that I give back is I volunteer at the shelters that I used to stay at, um,
Mhm.
particularly the one in Atlantic City. And one Thanksgiving, I was there volunteering, and I met another volunteer, and she said something to me that was very meaningful and powerful. She goes, for such nice people here, it doesn't seem like they do anything to get people out. And I
Mm.
said, you're absolutely right about that. And at the time, I knew the people that work there and what it was like there. And in my mind, it was, you have to fill the beds to get funding.
Mhm.
So what is the incentive for a homeless shelter who's either privately or publicly funded to get people out if their funding is based on the amount of people who come in?
Right, right.
And I think that's the harsh reality for a lot of facilities and institutions that are dealing with either homelessness issues or addiction issues. I didn't get out of the shelter willingly or by help from anybody in a shelter. I mean, I went through the judicial system, the legal
Mhm.
system, and we kind of put our heads together and we came up with a plan to help the people in the shelter. And it first started out with us providing assistance with getting jobs and finding permanent housing outside the shelter.
Mhm.
So she would do these like workshop clinics. The more we were trying to help people get jobs and find permanent housing, we realized everybody had legal issues that
Mhm.
must be resolved before any one of those two things can happen.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about like hardcore legal issues. I'm talking about the most minuscule of things that will keep someone stuck in a shelter for the rest of their life, all the
Mhm.
way down to not having a state ID.
Yeah.
You can't do anything without an ID. And if you don't have
Yep.
$35 to get an ID or to get to the like transportation, I mean, there's just a slew of reasons why someone is unable to get just a simple ID.
Yeah.
So that's where we started. And if you don't have a social security card, you can't get an ID. If you don't have either one of
Birth
those two,
birth certificate.
so that's what we started doing. We started requesting birth certificates from all these different states that, like, from wherever people were from. We would get that birth certificate. We would write a letter to them with their address at the shelter. They would take their birth certificate, and that letter would go to social services building, get a social security card, and now they have their birth certificate, a letter, a social security card, and then they can take all that and go get a state ID from the DMV. So
Yeah.
we either drive them or get them a bus pass so they can get there. And now that they have a state ID, they can apply for government benefits if they needed them, or a job. Things, just little things like that. You
Yeah.
know,
That is such a critical point, and I think it's a piece that a lot of people just don't realize, right? That when people don't have these what seem like really small things, right? I mean, I've had a driver's license since I was 16 years old. Things that seem like really small things, but if you don't have them and you don't have a sort of understanding of the process that's required to get these things, you can just get, stuck in a place. And it's not about laziness or a desire to stay stuck. It's like I don't know how to navigate these systems, and who's going to help me navigate them.
right? And the people at the shelter, their job is not to come up with $35 and drive you to the DMV to go get you a state ID.
Right.
Their job is to provide you with a safe place to stay. Once we were calling them like employment clinics and housing clinics and public benefits clinics, where we would just show up. We would have other volunteers come, and we would just help people with their paperwork or like with transportation or like getting the ball going.
Yeah.
And then I went back to the office one day. I would do this like once a week, and I told the lawyer who helped me, who was a partner at the firm, I said, like, all these people have legal issues. Can we help them? And she went all in like immediately.
Hmm.
And it was a beautiful thing because one of the things that I do on a daily basis is I try and find lawyers that will volunteer their time to go down to these shelters and take on pro bono cases. You don't
Mm-hmm.
necessarily have to take on the case and enter an appearance and all that. You can refer them to the public defender's office if you really don't want to get involved, but at least like give a consultation and let them know like what's what, where to go. A lot of people's legal issues in these places can be resolved with a phone call.
Yeah.
Like getting a warrant lifted, rescheduling a court appearance for someone, calling and finding out how much they owe and where they owe it to.
Yeah.
And I don't call it really legal work. It's just getting information.
Yeah. One of the things that we because we have this medical legal partnership with the Addiction Medicine Clinic at Cooper and with Camden Coalition of Healthcare Providers. And one of the things that we were also struck by was how many warrants people would have in different places, as you were saying earlier. And then if you're trying to deal with all of them and you don't know where they are and you don't know when you're supposed to be in court because they're sending you notices to an address where you don't live anymore, and it's just this very complicated system that in some ways is set up for people to fail, right? Which is incredibly frustrating.
Yeah,
So
that's what we do. We try and help people that are stuck in that situation. I mean, I was there, and I
yeah.
understand what it feels like to be stuck there and not literally have no idea what to do or how to do or who to even
Yeah.
call for help.
Tell us the name of your organization.
It's called Oncidium. Oncidium. It's after a flower. I didn't pick the name. My partner picked the name.
Okay.
I said, "You pick the name, and I'll pick the slogan." And it was "People helping people." So it was
Got
like
it.
a give and take. And to be honest with you, I really did not care what it was called. All I cared
Yeah.
about was that we were helping people, and that's what we do. So it's I didn't realize that starting a nonprofit is like a startup business.
Oh,
Like
yep. Yep.
and maybe doing that at the same time of trying to get into law school and then doing law school at the same time. It was really, really difficult, but I'm just glad to be done law school so I can really devote more time and energy to this nonprofit. We're only in a couple shelters, and I'd like to expand our footprint, and it just takes a lot of effort. And
Yeah, absolutely. And I want to just reiterate what you said before, which is that you like to have attorneys, pro bono attorneys, come in and help people out. So if
yes,
if folks are looking for a way to use their law degree outside of their job, here we
yeah,
go.
I had tons of work for you.
Excellent. So I did want to talk to you about the sort of larger systemic issues, that come out in your story, and that, if you're listening to the right podcasts or reading the right, articles, that there are so many complications that are involved here. And one of those is using criminal justice as a way to deal with people who have addiction or substance use disorders. And on one hand, I listen to your story and I say, well, drug court is what got Landon out and got him into this space where he's able to be so successful. But at the same time, I'm thinking to myself, but was that the best way to make that happen? Was that the only way to make that happen? So I'd love to hear you talk a little bit, particularly as somebody who now has a law degree, who can be very thoughtful about, what lawyers do and how our legal system works. Drug court is great, but is it the best way to deal with people who are struggling with addiction?
Right. So drug court certainly is not for everybody.
Hmm.
Drug court should be, in my opinion, should be a last resort option. I mean, I guess it really depends on what you get picked up and where your charges are. But if you're a first time offender, I don't think drug court is appropriate. Unless the individual says, "I have a drug problem, I have no idea how to help myself, I want drug court." And for that individual, I think drug court is a, a gift from God, is the
Hmm.
best thing you can possibly do, because in that situation, what drug court can do that no other diversionary program can do is provide you with treatment
Hmm.
for free. If you need to go away to a detox and then to a rehab and to a halfway house for 3 or 6 months, drug court will place you there and the state will pay for it. So for individuals that truly need that kind of help, I think drug court is the best option. But again, it should be a last resort option. Like, you should exhaust all avenues before you do that, because it's probation on steroids.
Hmm.
Drug court is for people who have violated probation or parole, or that This is their last chance before a lengthy prison sentence. More so than a diversionary program is avoiding the system altogether.
Right.
Not even having someone plead out to anything really.
Yeah.
Um, and not in a form of PTI. I mean avoiding the system altogether. I'm not a police officer and I'm not a prosecutor, but I imagine it would be difficult to pick someone up who's committed a crime, not charge them with anything, and instead send them to a rehab. And I know
Hmm.
that that sounds like a difficult and maybe wild or crazy thing to do, but I think that might be the best case for 99% of drug addicts. And I was given the opportunity to meet with the AG a few years ago, and one of his initiatives that he's doing is a program like that, which I thought was
Yeah.
absolutely remarkable. And I know they're doing in Burlington County, where if you get picked up for a drug related crime, they're not charging you. They're
Hmm.
placing you in a program. And I think that is the best part. And obviously, there will be those who take advantage of that system and do
Sure.
things knowing like I'm never going to get charged. So there has to be some kind of boundary and rule of, maybe a 3 strike and you're going to get charged kind of system. But we're talking about the majority of violators are it's petty crimes.
Yeah.
They're not violent in nature. They're not sexual in nature. They're truly drug related, whether it's possession or theft. And they need medical treatment,
Right.
not judicial punishment.
Right.
Um,
Right.
and I think if there are more programs like that will place you into treatment rather than charging you initially, I don't think first time offenders and petty criminals that are strictly drug related need to be thrown into the judicial system. And I know that's like a very radical and concept to grasp, and practically speaking may not be the best, but I have no doubt with all the great minds at work, they can make it happen if they really wanted to.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think that's right. And I think that we are at a point where, we're having a lot of great conversations about our criminal justice system, policing, all of these different things. And it is a moment where, and we've got these progressive prosecutors or, progressive AGs in our case. So it is kind of a nice moment for people to be thinking, first of all, it's incredibly expensive, right? To arrest people and to keep them in prison or in jail. If the goal is to actually get people clean and to help them, live their life, then putting people in jail and prison is probably not the best way to make that happen. So hopefully we'll see some changes there in the years to come.
yeah, it's hard. I mean, look, if there was easy answers to these problems or questions, like there would be no issues. But
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
you're always going to have people that take advantage of the system,
sure,
and
that's right.
so everything really needs to be done on a case by case basis. And I think we're trending in the right direction. Like for
Yeah,
one, the expungement aspect, like they just
hmm,
recently changed the expungement laws a couple years ago.
yeah,
So now when you graduate drug court, you get an expungement of your
hmm,
entire record, not with just what you pled into drug court with, but everything prior to. That can be
yeah.
expunged, obviously. That wasn't around when I graduated, but we were grandfathered in, and I actually did my own expungement.
Uh,
And that's one of
that's awesome.
yeah. Well, it was my senior year of law school, and
Hmm.
I knew like I was coming up on like applying to sit for the bar and the whole nine. And a lot of people I deal with through my nonprofit and charity work, they want expungements, and
Yeah,
I need to learn how to do that myself before I do it for someone else. So I thought there was no better person to learn on than myself. So I did my
yeah.
own expungement under the drug court statute and did all the paperwork and gathered all the information. And it took like 9 or 10 months, but it finally went through and I got my
Yeah, I
order.
was gonna say, how'd you find the process?
Uh, Extremely frustrating and difficult. I mean, look, there are brilliant people out there, and if you can do it by yourself per se, God bless you. But it is not
Hmm.
something that should be taken lightly, because if you mess one thing up, like
Yeah.
you get one bite at the apple. Like if you miss something, usually the prosecutor will tell you if you miss something, but sometimes they
Mhm.
don't. And you want to make sure when you do your expungement,
Yeah.
you do it right. And the issue with expungements for people like myself is you've done so much for so many years in so many different places, it may be hard for you to even remember where you've been arrested, when you've been arrested. So, how do you even go
Wow.
about Oprah
Right.
requesting all the court records to get all the information you have to put in your expungement application because you have to put the summons and complaint number, the
Right.
initial charge, what you pled out to, the date. Like, if you have like 10, 15
Oh,
things, it's a daunting task.
yeah. And then of course we have all of, the new marijuana law and what the expungements are going to look like under that law.
That changes the
Um,
game too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So interesting time.
It's tough. And the public defender, to put all that on the public defender's office, it's
Yeah.
difficult. The prosecutor's office should really work with the public defender's office to providing the public defender with the proper jacket to do the expungement application properly so it doesn't get rejected and then you get your date adjourned for 3 or 4 months. And yeah, it
So
was
you
a
got it done.
yeah,
You got it done.
yeah.
And then, so one thing that I want to make sure that we mention, because I've consumed a lot of your time today.
I'm in no
But,
rush. I can talk to you for hours. So
all
don't.
right. One of the things that I want to mention is that in what I think is pretty rare, you did your swearing in ceremony with the Chief Justice
Yeah.
of the New Jersey Supreme Court.
Yeah.
What was that like?
I'm friendly with some people at the AOC from like working with drug court, and like I try and give back is like anybody who calls me or emails me and tells me they want me to like help them with something or come in and speak to their drug court. I never say no to anything. So
Hmm.
I've had the opportunity to meet a lot of people in the courts, and Peter McAleer, the director of communications, called me and said the Chief Justice heard you passed the bar and he would like to swear you in. And it's just truly an honor. You don't say no to something like that. And
Yeah. Yeah.
so I actually wanted to give the honor to my lawyer who helped me, Kimberly Stewart. You know,
Yeah.
and I called her and I said, "I'm very sorry, but the Chief Justice asked if he could swear me in because you don't say no." I said,
Yeah. I think that's right. I think
"Yeah,
that's accurate.
yeah." It was really nice and it was really meaningful, and just every day is surreal for me. The fact, like, I am living the dream, so it's just everything's just amazing.
Well, I feel like that's such a lovely place to stop. So I'm not going to ask more questions. What I will say though is, that your story obviously is an amazing story. It's an amazing, sort of tale of triumph, which is really terrific. And I think what I like the most about it is that what you have taken from your experience is, how do I give this back? Right? How do I, take what has happened to me and the things that I've been able to do. And in some ways the luck you've had, right? I mean, you sort of talked about that, how some things just, fell into place quite nicely for you, being able to try to do something similar for the people who come behind you, which I think is, I think I have said many, many times before, and I'll continue to say this, that the highest purpose of a law degree is to do justice. And that's the work that you're doing. So
Yeah.
thank you. And I'm so glad that you get to do it with a Rutgers law degree.
Yeah, I think I like want to be very, very clear about this, that I am not unique in the sense that I'm the only one with disability or potential.
Mm,
I mean,
mm-hmm.
I know dozens and dozens of people, and I know there are thousands of people in New Jersey and millions of people across America that are similarly situated as I was 10 years ago, that have the
Mm-hmm.
same capability and same potential, and they just need to be guided just a little bit and given an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that's my goal in life, is to give that guidance and provide those opportunities to those who don't have that.
Yeah.
And I mean, I hope there are dozens of other drug court graduates that become lawyers and change the system. There's no parallel to a lawyer who's been in this client's shoes helping that client.
Yeah.
And I think if we have more lawyers that can, if not necessarily able to relate from based on life experiences, but at least empathize, like
Yes.
put
Right.
themselves in the position of their client, or just think about if they have children, how would they want their child to be treated
Yeah.
on both sides of the aisle, on
Mm-hmm.
both from a defender's perspective and a prosecution perspective.
Yeah.
And when you have that kind of dynamic going, then we can really, really, really help a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I hope, as I said, I hope that we are in a space where there really can be significant systemic change, and it feels like we
Yeah,
are in that space. And I think that we're lucky. New Jersey is pretty, left leaning. which is helpful. So hopefully, we can be sort of an example
Yeah,
potentially for
we're
some
at the
other states.
forefront of the forefront.
So, one of the things that I like about your story, so it's one of the things that I really like, and then one of the things that I think is really challenging is that there are lots of people who would look at you. You're white, you're a man, you've got this,
Yep,
very nice appearance. And so there are people who would look at you and say, well, of course we wanted to give this guy a second chance, right? But all those other people,
that's right.
we should just leave them where they are.
That's right. And
Yeah.
that's my whole purpose in life, is to change that.
Yeah.
And I'm grateful for the opportunities that I was given, but everybody should get the same opportunity.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I'm going to leave it there. This has been such a great conversation. I'm so appreciative that you took the time, and I'm just so looking forward to what you're going to do with your law degree, because I think you're one of those people who is going to look back and be able to say those are the ways in which I changed the world, and that's pretty amazing. So
I hope so. I just want to help. I just want to help one person. If I can help one person, I'm good.
I think you'll help a lot more than one person.
I hope so.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Landon.
Thank you guys very much for having me. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
The Power of Attorney is produced by Rutgers Law School. With 2 locations, minutes from Philadelphia and New York City, Rutgers Law offers the prestige and reputation of a large, nationally known university with a personal, small campus experience. Learn more by visiting law.rutgers.edu.